Hi, welcome to Cinefilm Recap. Today we will recap the 2014 film Against the Sun. Please stay tuned. Three troops are stuck in a boat in the middle of the ocean. They have to hope for rain to get water and kill sharks to eat. The story takes place during the Second World War, when a US Air Force team is on a reconnaissance mission. The personnel of the American torpedo bomber over the Pacific Ocean consists of Commander Harold Dixon, radio operator Gene Aldrich, and bombardier Tony Paschal. Too much distance has developed between the crew and the other aircraft on the mission, and can no longer find their way around in space. Captain Harold decides to go back to the aircraft carrier, but the crew can't find the warship at the given locations. Gene tries to get in touch with the base, but gets on the Japanese radio wave and stops the transmission. To make the plane lighter, the fuel level is falling quickly. After a long time looking for the aircraft ship, Tony throws the bomb into the water. The pilot decides to land the plane on the water and tells the crew to pack the basics and prepare a lifeboat. After a safe landing, the pilot is the first to get out, and the bomber slowly starts to sink. The rest of the crew panics and can't undo their belts because they are already underwater. Three men manage to get out and find the captain. Together, they fill the lifeboat, but when they try to turn it over, it ends up on its side. The team loses the only flashlight that was already in the boat. The guys got to know each other better, sure that someone will save them the next day. The three men fall asleep on the first day of the team's time in the open ocean. They don't realize how dangerous the situation is, so they feel calm and have an unplanned tea party. The captain tells the crew that they need to set up monitoring zones and look everywhere so you don't miss the rescue plane. After a while, the crew sees a fast plane in the sky, but they can't do anything about it because they're so scared. The boys failed to pick up the signal lights and parachutes during the landing, so the trio frantically waves their clothes in an attempt to catch their attention, but the plane doesn't see them and flies away. Harold informs the crew that this is their only hope of survival. The trio was left without food, drink, or communication after landing in the enemy's territorial seas. In the middle of the world's biggest ocean, the captain blames Gene for everything because he wasn't able to catch the signal from the aircraft ship. He does this even though he knows how dangerous the situation is. Harold takes charge of the rowboat and tells the other men to follow him without question. His first order is for them to empty their bags to see what they can use to stay alive. They have a pistol with 2 rounds of bullets, a pocket knife, pliers, wire, cable, an empty bag for water, and navigational aids. Harold then instructs the guys to throw overboard their shoes to avoid damaging the boat. He retains his boots with him, so he will have something to wear when they get to land. Gene and Tony talk about food and military service for the rest of the day while their boss takes a nap. Later, Harold tells the team to take turns being on duty all night and keep an eye on the situation. Replacing Gene, the captain decides to pee. Since urine is their only source of drinking water, the man fills his shoe with it and drinks from it. The next day is coming. Harold figures out roughly where the boat is and tells the team that the next mainland is hundreds of miles away. Therefore their boat is sailing toward the Hawaiian Islands, but with a favorable breeze they may approach a tiny cluster of friendly islands much sooner. Gene advises that the team attempt fishing for food from makeshift methods. The lads create a handmade fishing line and cast it into the ocean. Within a few seconds the prey is hooked. Thrilled, the team tries to get the catch into the boat, but the fish is hungrier than them and swallows half the line and the hook. They spend many more hours fishing. Searing son Tony is motivated to think about how he would get the medal when all is finished. Harold suggests that his team may be sued for dropping a bomber to the bottom of the ocean. Tony claims that no one is to blame for the crash landing, to which Gene responds that there is still a suspect and casts an unequivocal glance at the commander. Gene decides to swim instead of fishing. Harold advises the personnel to stay near to the boat because there may be sharks in the water. Upon hearing this, Tony changes his mind about going for a swim the following day. So ends another day. On the third day, Gene and Tony talk about why they joined the service and what they did before the war. Tony says he did well in the mechanics school and finished with honors. After hearing this, the commander blames the bombardier for the crash landing owing to his inexperience as a navigator, lowering team morale. Tony is so thirsty that he is about to drink water from the ocean, but the captain stops him just in time, and the rest of the team can't help but wonder what's going on. Why they haven't died yet if they don't have food and water. Harold says that they're safe because they don't move around much and get their own water. Who is in charge is shocked to find a pencil and, to remember where they are, draws a map of the area around them. After figuring out the rough coordinates, Harold encourages the crew by telling them they're on the correct track, so they create an anchor to stay on track. In case of a bad wind direction, the crew may only pray for a decent breeze and rain to relieve their thirst. The men start singing a song as a means of petitioning the higher forces for water to fall from the sky so that they can assist one another. With this song, they say goodbye to one another. Grueling day, their prayers were answered, and it rained at night. Happy lads collected water in a bag and clothing, and finally get enough to drink. This gives them a few more days of life. Under the hot sun, the trio's skin is burned and blistered. Gene keeps trying to catch fish, but he can't. The guy gets angry and pulls out a knife to stab at least one fish. Some sort of hook on it. The captain orders Gene to conceal the dagger so as not to damage the ship, but he does not comply, and starts stabbing the water with the knife. Soon, the man gets a hold of something, and Harold thinks he can still pierce the boat hut, which surprises everyone. Gene plunges a dagger into the shark, which is promptly blocked by Tony. Together, the team dispatches the predator and enjoys a hearty meal. The squad saves some shark flesh for later after Tony informs them he has a sister. After hearing a friend's story about a lovely girl, Gene loves her image after eliminating the predator. The boat is covered with its blood, and then, without thinking, the boys press it into the sea, which draws in even more sharks. The group has realized that there are dangerous animals all around them, and that their chances of living at night are now much lower. When you wake up from a bad dream, Gene plans to wash himself, but he doesn't think about the ocean's bloodthirsty creatures. As soon as he puts his hands in the water, the predators attack and flee. Despite being shocked by what he saw, Tony asks the captain what their group will be called on land. Harold tells him that they will be called the crew. They were lost at sea, so now they don't have to worry about what will happen to them. The next few days were hard for the boat's crew. They run out of water and can't find food, so all they can do is pray and wait for God to help them again. It's day at sea, and Tony stares at his gun oddly. Gene realizes this and grabs his comrade's firearm, but not to prevent him from shooting himself. A kaplan sits near to the sleeping commander, and Gene shoots the bird, waking Harold awake, but swiftly. Orienting himself, he jumps into the water to get the dead bird, which somehow managed to avoid being eaten by a big shark. The captain is able to bring the prey back to the boat, but the men don't like it and say it tastes like raw chicken. Since then, 5 days have passed, and the three people are totally worn out by the daily fight for life. The next morning, when the captain wakes up, he finds that his co-workers are sleeping and no one is keeping an eye on the situation. In a frenzy, he chastises the team, but Tony advises him not to order them out but to watch out himself. Harold drew a map based solely on his estimates, and it turns out that they were unable to reach the islands he described. Should have gone to the friendly islands for days ago. This was the last thing Gene could take, and he tells the captain about it. He blamed them for the plane's forced landing and compelled them to throw away their footwear. Given commands while taking his squad nowhere, suddenly Harold remembers what truly occurred inside the aircraft during the mission. He fell asleep at the wheel for a few minutes, and as a result, he flew past where the aircraft carrier was. When he realizes that his mistake caused the team to lose, he says sorry to his subordinates with pain in his voice. The trio contemplates gloomy ideas in quiet. Gene speaks up first and supports the captain. He suggests that they use Harold's map to find a way to land anyway. This gives the man back his confidence, and he lands safely. He cuts up his shoes to make oars. The happy group paddles on, imagining what they'll do when they reach land again. It's been a month since the plane crashed, and the three survivors are once again thirsty and losing their last chance of rescue as clouds gather in the evening sky. The men know that they will soon be able to drink water, but a new challenge is waiting for them. The rain turns into terrifying storm. The boat is covered with waves, and the commander is tossed overboard. Wave covers the boat fully, and the trio is in the water from the upturned boat, everything that helps the team survive. All of these days go underwater, but the guys still manage to get back into the boat and make it through the storm. The men begin humorously discussing how they will dismember each other without a knife in the morning. When one of them dies, the leader tells the others that if they make it, he will give them advice if he ever hears from them. Before the military court, where the subordinates claim they have no clue what they can charge Harold with, the man starts to cry when they tell him they will not betray their leader. After a while, the commander sees that Tony lies with his eyes open and doesn't move. The guys think their friend is dead, but his eyes blink after a few seconds, and he finally wakes up. Gene sees islands in the distance and tells the others what he saw. The trio rowed ashore, but the wind already takes them in the proper direction. They are tossed ashore by the seas, and they lay down on the long-awaited land. The commander sees a few structures up ahead and realizes that they are in the clear. At this point, rising, the trio casts. Taking one last look at the rowboat, they lean on each other and move toward the homes, where the bomber is waiting. After all that happened, the group spent 34 days in the Pacific and went over 1,000 miles in a small lifeboat. Tony put up his military career as a reward for getting his crew to safety because of the experience Gene served. He worked as a radio operator until the end of World War II and married Tony's sister. So, what do you think about this recap? Please write on the comment section. Assuming you partaking in the recap, kindly consider like and subscribe into Cinefilm Recap. Gratitude for observing.